Hi, this is Karen with Karen's Cards and More, and I have a super fun, super cute Christmas card to share with you today. And what's really cool about this design is it doesn't have to just scream Christmas. Depending on what stamp sets you put with it, what die cuts you put with it, you could easily change this. So here's the card, and I made it to look like a door, like a front door. I have the two little doorknobs. So on the front it says Joy. On the inside we just have a beautiful sparkling Christmas tree. Then I put the signature or greeting page on the back. Let your hearts be light. And there's plenty of places to sign. And so you could easily change the colors and do a like a housewarming. You could do it in pastels and do like a welcome home baby card. So there's lots of options that you could do with this door motif with this design. So let's talk about what I use to do this. Now I'm going to feature two stamp and die sets that were in the June through December mini catalog for Stampin' Up! And so let me show you those sets. I bought the whole suite that's in the catalog, but if you just like one set or the other, you could certainly just do that. This is the Christmas Lights stamp set. We're going to use the tree from here, and we're going to use the dies for the tree. And this is the Twinkling Lights die set. So we're going to use this, and I'll show you how that's going to work and what we're going to do with that. And then the second set is called Brightest Glow, the stamp set, and we're using some sayings off of here. And then the corresponding die set is called Labels Aglow, and we're going to be using this center circle for our piece that goes on the front. So that's the stamp and die sets that we're going to be using. I want to keep this one handy so that we can use this. I'm just going to go ahead and pull these off. And then let's talk about the paper that we're going to use. I used Cherry Cobbler for my base. So this piece is the normal 8.5 by 5.5, and we're going to score it together because we want to do the gatefold design. And then I have a piece of Very Vanilla. I have a scrap that I used for this front piece, and then I cut the back piece to be 4 by 5.25. Then I have a piece of this Designer Series paper. This was also in that suite. This is 4 by 5.25. Then I have these two pieces, and I used this side, but let me show you the other side of this. It's these real pretty circles, so you could definitely use that if you wanted to. Since I was using this with the gold, I chose to use this side, but the other side's beautiful as well. And these are 2 by 5.25. Then you're going to need 6 squares that are 1.25 inches, like this. And then you're going to need 6 squares that are 1 inch. And we're going to layer those together to make our panels for the front. And I'm going to show you what we're going to do to the smaller squares in a moment to give it a little bit of depth look, which I think really helps it to look like panels on a front door. So we're going to do that together in a moment. So let's just jump right into this card. This is a real easy card to put together. If you needed to make a bunch of these in a hurry, you could definitely do that. I'm going to be using liquid glue today. You could definitely use your Stampin' Seal if you wanted to. I'm going to use 2 colors of ink. I'm going to use Cherry Cobbler and Soft Succulent. And one more thing I want to point out, there's 2 types of paper in this suite that I used for the Christmas tree. So I used this one that has all of these beautiful gold scallops, that's the word. And so we're going to cut one out there. And then also in that suite was this really bright gold glittery paper. And we're going to cut that to go behind it. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but it looks like there's lights on the tree because the gold is coming up through the holes in the tree. So let's just jump right in. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to prepare our little 1-inch circles or 1-inch squares. And what I did is I took my cherry cobbler, and I'm only going to do one on camera. I've got the others already done, but I want to show you what I did so that you can do this. So I took just a sponge dauber in my cherry cobbler, and I just brushed the edges just to darken it up around the edges. And that really helps the look of the squares on the front. That it gives it a little bit of a depth perception and really helps to look like the panels of a front door. So I just went around all 4 corners, just like that. And you could add as much or as little as you want. It's just all in the look that you want. And I think that looks good. So we're done with our dauber. Now let's go ahead and get our back piece ready. Since we've got the ink open, let's go ahead and start with that. And the first thing I did, I'm going to use my Stamparatus for this because I wanted to play with placement of where I wanted the tree, where I wanted the writing. So I wanted to put it on my Stamparatus. Okay. That actually looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to start with my tree, and that's my soft succulent. I will tell you with this stamp also, I find that when I was using my block to try it, I was getting overspray ink where I didn't want it. Let me show you once I get this inked up. Now you could trim around the edges of the stamp. See all this extra rubber? That was causing me a little bit of trouble when I tried to hand stamp it. So when I went with the Stamparatus, I was able to control that a little bit better. So I'm just going to, in fact, I'm just going to wipe around the edge to get that ink off to reduce the likelihood that I'm going to have a problem. And then I'm just going to come back in with my ink pad and try to touch up those spots to make sure I have it good and inked. And the other thing about the Stamparatus, if it's not as dark as you want it, you can always stamp right back in the same spot. And that's always a plus for me. Okay, so I'm just going to press this down. And I'm happy with that. I like that. That's plenty dark enough for me. I don't need to double stamp it. I do need to clean off my stamp though, so when I do my red, I won't get green on anything that I don't want it on, so we'll do that. Now I'm just going to come in with my cherry cobbler. And I'm just going to move this over so you can be sure and see what I'm doing. And because I already have it set where I want it, I'm just going to ink this up. That looks good. And I'm just going to put that down. And the nice thing is if you still had green ink on, you're not going to get it anywhere where there wasn't already a stamped image. So you don't have to worry too much. Now, if you like it like that, you can leave it like that. If you wanted a little darker, you can go a little darker. I think I want to double stamp it because I just want to get it a really good bright red. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to stamp it again. Right in the same place. You could never do that twice in a row like that if you were hand stamping it. And I like the color of that better. I like that darker red. So we're going to go with that. And then I'm just going to set this aside. Be careful when you've freshly stamped it that you don't smear your hand across it because you will smear your ink. You want to give it just a few seconds to dry. And we'll have time for it to dry because we're going to work on other things. I'm going to go ahead and clean the red off just so that I have that done so I can close this up and set this out of the way. And then we're just going to move on to the next step. I'm going to bring in my trimmer so we can do our scoring on our card base. And so what we want to do is we want to come in 2 1/4 from each side. Remember our side panels, and I may have said that these were 2 1/4 by 5 1/4. They're actually 2 by 5 1/4. Because we need the front to be 4 1/2. You divide that by 2, you get 2 1/4. So these need to be 2 by 5 1/4. I can't remember what size I said when I was speaking at the beginning of the video, but they are 2 1/4. Those are 2 by 5 1/4. So I'm just going to go at 2 1/4. And if you have the Stampin' the Stampin' Up! Trimmer, you want to use the lighter blade, or the lighter. That's going to be your score tool. So let's just get this at 2 1/4. And I'm going to go ahead and score that. And then I'm just going to flip my paper over and do 2 1/4 from the other side. And that's going to give us the gatefold that we need for this card. And I'm going to score that. And then we've got the card base ready to go, and we're ready to start assembling. Let's go ahead and do our die cutting. So I'm going to bring in, you know, we do have one more piece of stamping that we need to do. So let me bring this back in. We're going to need our cherry cobbler, because on the front we have the piece that says joy. So we want to go ahead and get that ready. So I'm just going to hand stamp that. I'm just going to ink that up. We're going to stamp this down. Just like that. Now we're done with our ink. Okay, now I'm going to bring in my die cut machine. And hopefully this is on camera enough where you can see it. So I'm going to start with my gold piece, and we're just doing the outline tree. Just the outline tree. So I'm just going to put this on here. Just like that. And I'm going to run that through. Now, I didn't have any trouble just running it through once. It cut through this thick paper. Sometimes with thick paper, you might have to run it back through a second time. I didn't have any trouble. It cut it out really nicely. So that's that. And then with this Decorative Designer Series paper, you want to do the outline, but then you want to take this other piece and you want to put that inside it. So you want them to be, you want to use both pieces for this part. And you'll see why when we get done here in a minute. And I'm trying to just make sure that's centered in there. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to die cut this through. And let me show you what happens with this. So it cut the tree out, but it put all these little holes. And I don't know, let me put this red behind it. Maybe that'll help. So it puts all these little holes in that. So when we put it on that sparkly gold shines through all these little holes, and it really makes it look like a lit up, adorned Christmas tree. Plus you've got the design that's already, the scallop designs that's already part of the paper. And you just get a really cool effect that way. And I really like that. So that's that. And the only other thing that we need to die cut is we're just going to die cut this joy. Now that's, with a circle, you can die cut first and then stamp. It's easy to get it on there straight because it's a circle, right? Because you can always turn the circle. But I stamped before I die cut because then I can be sure to get things how I want them. You can do it either way, whatever's easier for you. When I first started doing cards, for some reason, I always die cut first and then stamped. And that was easier for me. Now I seem to stamp first and then die cut. So it really doesn't matter. It just, whatever you're more comfortable with to help you get your cards the way you want them. So I'm just going to die cut that. And there we have our circle. And we'll just move this other stuff out of the way. And we're ready to start putting things together. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to pull in all of my squares. So we should have 6 of the big squares, which are 1¼ inch. And then we have 6 little squares. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my liquid glue. And I'm just going to glue the little squares move my thumb out of the way so I can get glue in that corner. So I'm just going to be gluing these little squares in to the big squares. And I like using the liquid glue because that gives me time to move it. If I don't get it straight, I can always move it a little bit. That looks good, just like that. So I'll set that one out of the way. And we're just going to do the same thing with all 6 pieces. Okay, so we've got our 6 squares ready, and we're going to go ahead and glue our tree together while we're working with our liquid glue. So I'm going to bring in, we've got the gold piece. Just set my squares out of the way for a moment, just scoot them up. So we've got the gold piece, and then we've got the green piece that we cut. And we're just going to layer those together. Now, you could have cut this out. You could have put the adhesive sheet on the back of this designer series paper before you cut it out. That way you could just peel that backing off and stick it down. Because there's a lot of room between the holes, I found it was really easy just to put the liquid glue on there. So I'm just going to, in between the holes, I'm going to make sure not put liquid glue where the holes are. And I'm just going to kind of go around the edges. Just like that. Try to turn it and keep my fingers out of the glue. That seems to always be a challenge for me. I'm forever sticking my fingers in my glue. And then I'm just going to run some in some different places in between the holes just to help hold it down. As you can see, I'm not being real particular with this. I think that's plenty. And then what I found was easiest is I just put my green piece down and then lined the gold piece up on top of that. I found it was pretty easy to get it straight doing that way rather than trying to put the green down on the gold, I found it easy just to do it this way. And then when I turned it over, it was lined up and I didn't have any problems. So I think that looks pretty good. And hopefully you can see the gold coming up through the holes. I love that look. I just love that tree. Okay, so let's come in with our card base. And we want to go ahead and make the fold. This is just a traditional gatefold. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do our folds. And I think at the beginning of the video, I said that it was 2 1/4 that we were going to score at. It was actually 2 1/8 that we're scoring at. 2 1/8 to make our gatefold. And that should come out perfect. Now, some people, instead of scoring it, they'll just bring the sides to the middle and then use their bone folder. And you could do that too, whatever works. So I'm going to get the crease in there. And then I'm going to come back with my bone folder. And I'm just going to give it a crease. Okay. So there we have the basis of our card ready to go. Now we're just ready to start decorating. So the first thing I did is I came back with my squares that I had put together and I just started placing those down. I knew I wanted 2 rows of 3. And again, the liquid glue is great for this to be able to help with placement. And I just kind of centered it on this side of the gatefold. Okay, and then we're just going to work our way down on this first side, and then we'll move over to the other side and just line them up. I'm just leaving some space in between. I'm going to come in with the third one. Just like that. And there's all sorts of things you could do to dress this up. You could put like a mail slot, like something with gold or silver to make a mail slot there. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, depending on what kind of card it is, would make your door look different. So you could do something with wood grain in it to make it look like a wood paneled door. Lots of options. Maybe I'll do a video where I show how you can make a wood panel look on just, you could use even the Very Vanilla, you could use one of the grays, and you could do your own swiping on there to give it the wood grain look. So maybe I'll do a video where I show that technique. So it's our last panel. I'm just lining it up, just like that. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead while we're here and flip it over, and I'm going to bring in the piece that we stamped for the back. And we're just going to go ahead and put some glue on that. Now you could have, instead of stamping the tree on here, you could have just used the Very Vanilla behind the Christmas tree on the inside, and then you would have had space to write your name. But I liked this design, so it's all in what look you like. So I'm going to try to center this on here. Okay, just like that. And then we're going to open it up on the inside, and we're going to put this piece right here in the middle. And look at the back of this piece. It's got all these pretty stars. You could do a 4th of July theme with that, with the stars. So there's always more than one use. And I'm just going to center that. Just like that. And then I'm going to come in with my side panels. We're just going to line those up. I try to keep the bottom of those even with the bottom of the middle piece. There we go with that. One more piece for the other side. And then I think all of our gluing will be done. We're going to use some dimensionals to do put some other pieces on, but I think our glue will be done with our gluing. So just like that. Okay. So now we're gonna put our tree in the middle, and you could decorate these side panels differently. There's all kinds of little cute things you could do. Again, it depends on what kind of look you're going for. So I'm going to bring in my Take Your Pick tool, and I'm just going to put some dimensionals on the back of my card because I wanted to pop this up from the, I didn't want it to lay flat. So we're just going to bring this in. Just like that. Take the backings off. Okay. And I'm just going to place this in the center. Just like that. And then let me show you a little secret for what I did with the piece on the front. Rather than trying to make sure where I put the glue on this, what I did is I'm using mini dimensionals, and I knew that I wanted it up in this top region. So I just took a couple of the mini dimensionals and I put them on the card itself. So I just lined these up, pulled the paper off, and then I was able to just set the joy however I wanted, and knew that it was going to be fine and I wasn't going to be holding, putting glue in the wrong place and gluing the card shut. So that took all the guesswork out of it. That looks good. And then I had in the same suite, there's these red and green adhesive back pearls that also have gold and silver. So I used 2 of the little gold gems there. And I just eyeballed where I thought a doorknob would go. And I put one on each panel. Just tried to even those up, just like that. And there you have it. The card is done. A super cute idea, super cute as a Christmas card, but like I said, you could change it up and use it for any event. I hope you will give this a try. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm an independent demonstrator from Stampin' Up, and I would love to help you with any of your Stampin' Up needs. Be sure to check out my Facebook group, my Facebook page, my blog site, karenscardsandmore.com. There's a special advantage if you order from me in the month of December. And if you are new to my channel, please hit subscribe, leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up if you like the video. If there's a specific technique or type of card that you would like to see, leave me a comment and I will work on that so that I can help you with that. And I will be back to craft with you again soon.